listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome Jane. Jane Brindley is a confidence and mindset coach who's been working with riders at all levels for many years, since 2004, when she set up her business Horse Riding with Confidence Scotland. She uses hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, NLP, and performance coaching to help riders overcome anxiety, grow in self-belief, and fulfill their goals with a strong and resilient mind. And Jane is absolutely brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with her. So Jane, very much welcome. Lovely to see you. Lovely to chat with you again. We have known each other for quite a long time now. Not the full 20 years, though.
No, that's we have known each other for a few years. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really delighted to be here today. And yeah, it's good. Thank you for the introduction. And it's good to have this opportunity to chat together about all things mindset for riders.
Absolutely. Now, you have a really interesting journey, because I know that you didn't start off as a psychologist or psychotherapist or anything like that. You started off as a botanist, didn't you?
I did, yes. Yes.
So how on earth did you get from botany? And I know you've gone via other things like your nursing and so on into helping riders. Tell us a bit about your journey.
Gosh, yes, a potted history. I won't give you too many gory details, but yes, at school, I was one of those kids who was good at passing exams. So I was just basically channeled into doing a science degree. Actually applied to do biochemistry, but in first year I did 3 subjects in first year: botany, zoology, and chemistry. And I loved the botany and particularly like the lecturers, I think. So that's why I thought, now forget this biochemistry stuff. And I did a botany degree and loved it. And I've got a lifelong love of plants and the natural world. And I never used that. And realistically, I wasn't a scientist. I wasn't a sort of natural scientist. Possibly in retrospect, I maybe would have done a social science degree, a psychology or something like that. But, I did what I did at the time. And then I decided I wanted to work with people rather than be a scientist. So I went and did nursing and then midwifery, and worked for many years as a midwife and community midwife, and loved that. But then there was a lot going on in my own life, and that didn't really work for me anymore. So I stepped away from midwifery. I can still remember the day I handed my notice in. And at the time, there was a promoted post position coming up. And my boss thought I was going to go and speak to her to say I was applying for the promotion. And I said, well, actually, no, I'm leaving. And she kind of took a step back and kind of went, oh, right. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, that's another story. So I just sort of retreated for a while and sorted out myself and sorted out what was going on in my life, and did some other bits and bobs working for my husband in his business, helping him with bookkeeping, which I still do, actually, still help him a bit with that, but that's not my thing as such. And then missed working with people, really. Missed that contact. And so I went and did some psychology courses and loved it instantly. And the teacher on that course was great. And she said to me, you should be a counsellor. You should be. So I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should be a counsellor, and went and investigated some counselling courses, but they all seemed a bit wishy-washy to me. And there was nothing that grabbed my attention until a friend had recently completed diploma in hypnosis and psychotherapy with National College. And I kind of thought, oh, this looks interesting. And it was quite a challenging course, taught at master's level. So it was kind of academically challenging. And it was very meaty. And it was done in 3 stages. And you could do them consecutively, but just with the timing and other stuff going on, I did it over about a 2-year period. And while I was doing that, during during all this time, I'm a horse rider and owner and quite a sort of nervous rider. So while I was doing that course, I just by default really started to apply what I was learning to my own riding and found, without having to make too much effort at all, that I was not doing the what if thing constantly. I was happier to push myself out of my comfort zone. And basically, I was just enjoying my riding more. Previously, I had, been quite a timid rider and would just limit myself to quite a small comfort zone. So when I was coming to the end of that course, I thought, well, maybe there's a little niche here. So this was the early 2000s. And when I qualified, I just put an ad in our local freebie horsey paper saying, does anybody want help with confidence? Just kind of focusing, really using the word confidence. And I was inundated with people going, help, help. And I realized, gosh, yes, there is a market for this, and there's a need very much for this. And this was early 2000s. So I qualified in 2004, started my business in 2004. And at that time, it was pre-social media, and riding coaching was still very much riding instruction. And there was very little psychology-based education within that. So I think there was a huge need for confidence work, for the off-horse psychology work that I could then offer horse riders. And I've gone from there, really.
Wow. That's a great transformation, isn't it? Time and time again,
Yes.
transform
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is.
So when you think back to 2004, or even when you were doing your qualifications in psychology and hypnotherapy and so on, I mean, the riders wouldn't have had much idea that this kind of work existed, these kind of coaches existed, unless they were at elite levels, I suppose.
Yeah, I think you're right. At that point, I think I was probably the only person in Scotland offering off-horse work like this. Quite quickly, one or two appeared on the scene, mostly NLP coach, specific coaches. But I kind of kept at it, kept plugging at it. And I saw people putting adverts in and then disappearing again. And maybe it wasn't for them, or they didn't enjoy doing what they did, or for whatever reason, they didn't continue. And I did. I was kept on. But yes, I think you're right. A lot of, at that time, riders were very private about the fact that they were consulting me. And quite often they wouldn't even be telling their partners or husbands or close friends or their yard mates or their riding instructor. They wouldn't, and I can remember very clearly having to reassure people that the work we did was confidential.
Mm.
Nobody was going to know. And even though the horsey world is quite small relative to some industries, I wasn't going to be telling anybody, guess who came to see me because she's worried about jumping over 50 centimeters.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so that has changed over the years. People are much more open. A lot of people are still very private about it, which is fine. It's absolutely 100% their choice. But also at the same time, a lot of people are much more open to talking about their fears and their worries and their struggle with maintaining their confidence and their challenges, their emotional challenges, their riding confidence mindset challenges.
Mm.
It's changed hugely.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember, I'm trying to think back when I would have been competing, probably around about the time that you're talking about, and a little bit later as well, more into the 2000s. And I was struggling with nerves, but I didn't even know that. Obviously, I knew sports psychologists existed, but again, I didn't think they were for everybody. I thought they were for professionals. So I should have contacted you in those days.
That would have been funny, yes. Because we didn't have Zoom then.
No,
So,
no.
it was very much always face to face working with people at that time. And yes, so there was no social media. And so it was very much, putting an ad in the local paper, putting up posters, going to delivery yards, putting up posters, leaving piles of business cards around the place and hoping that people would pick them up. And just to let people know that psychological help for horse riders was available.
Mm.
Gradually, word of mouth spread, and people did start to become more aware of the benefits of doing off-horse work.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what, how would you describe mindset? That's a horrible question, isn't it? Sorry. But people confuse it with mental health, or, I know everyone has their own definition, but I'm
Yeah,
just intrigued.
it's very much a belief system. What do you believe about, we're talking riding here. What does the person believe about themselves? What do they believe about their ability to ride their horse? What do they believe about their ability to do the things that they choose to do on horseback? And then how does that then affect the results that they get? Whether they're a leisure rider who wants to have fun at home, going for a few hacks and maybe joining in a yard show once a year, or whether they're wanting to compete at affiliated or higher level. They still need to have that ultimate belief that they can do it.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
they don't, then they're fighting a battle constantly against their mind, their
yeah,
mindset.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just before we came on here, you were talking about helping riders who are going to Blair. So how is it different when you are coaching somebody who is more towards the grassroots or riding club level compared to somebody who does this as a profession? Is there a difference when you coach them?
Well, ultimately, they're all human beings, so their minds basically work in the same way. They'll all have a different set of past experiences, riding skills. They'll all have different levels of self-belief. But your kind of average, if there is such a thing, novice or leisure rider who consults me is often battling with fear,
Yeah,
and fear of something, in inverted commas, happening, or fear of feeling out of control, or fear of not being able to handle stuff, etc. Whereas your serious amateurs or professional riders are generally not afraid.
Hey, I found this on the web for senators or professional riders. Check it out.
Sorry, Siri just heard me talking about professional riders. Gosh, I'm going to turn that right
you can
down.
edit that back,
Silent.
don't worry.
Like that. You could keep that in because it's quite amusing. If you want, it's entirely up to you. Whereas your more serious riders who are moving up the levels are looking for being able to repeat in performance situations what they know they can do at home.
Yeah,
And they might have fears of losing face or feeling like an imposter or fears of not getting it right or anything like that. But they're generally not afraid of the riding as such.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
generally not worried about galloping fast over cross country or jumping
yeah,
big
yeah.
pieces. But their concerns or their worries or their anxieties are slightly different, but the route might well be the same.
So when you think about those two styles of rider on a spectrum, although their fears are different, they've both got some style of fear or self-doubt or something like that. So the techniques that you would choose, generally speaking, would they be the same techniques that you employ with those people?
Often, yes,
Yeah,
yes. And getting them to basically getting somebody to understand, where are you now and where do you want to get to?
yeah,
And what's going on now? What's contributing to the challenges that you've got in the present moment? And how can we address those challenges to help you move forwards? So it might be that somebody who's, I mean, I'm sure you have as well. I've had people who are literally scared to get on their horse or scared to take one step out of an indoor arena.
Mm.
And so, yeah, where's that coming from? And what can we do about it? And what skills and what strengths do they have that they can apply to the situation that they find themselves in?
Mm. Yeah.
And then comparing that to the rider who's going to Blair to, do an FEI, a challenging 3-day event. Where are they now? We've only got a week to go between now. So where are they now, and what do they need help with to be able to perform at Blair or at any event or any show or any competition the way that they know they can?
Yeah.
It's very much that belief, that self-belief. What do we need to challenge? What beliefs do they have that we need to delete and help them, develop more helpful beliefs?
Yeah. Do you think that people expect you to have a magic wand though? Or do you think people think that you need to be in coaching for 2 or 3 years before you achieve that?
Some people do very obviously come thinking that I'm going to fix them
Yeah.
uh, and turn them into the rider that they've always been. That as a therapist or, as a coach is a challenge for me.
Yeah.
How do I educate them that actually this is a two-way process between the client and the professional? And that can be quite tricky, that they feel, or they just come to the session and then don't do the homework, for example,
Mm.
and think that just by paying me a bit of money and coming to 1 or 2 sessions that all their problems are going to disappear. Whereas often I find that more riders who are more serious about the sport or more higher up the levels or more committed to their sport, they understand that it's hard work, that they've got to do the homework and they've got to practice the techniques I teach them and continue to practice, that it's not just a quick fix, that it's very much their responsibility to put into practice the things that I teach them.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you've had this question 1,000 times before, but because you're a mindset coach, because you've been doing this for 20 years and you're celebrating your anniversary this year, which is very exciting, then are you fixed in inverted commas? Is your mindset now perfect? Nothing could ever challenge it.
It's funny. It's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, when I first started doing this work with riders, in my naivety and my lack of experience, really, I kind of thought that I was going to be able to fix people in 1 or 2 sessions. And I quickly realized that, the mind is a lot more complicated than I maybe realized at that stage. So on a personal level, no, I'm not fixed as such. I'm a work in progress. But as a rider, I now rarely find myself in a situation where I'm seriously worried. I recognize the signs and take steps immediately to stop that from escalating. So, for example, was it last year or the year before? I think it was 2 years ago now. I went on a week's trekking holiday in the Highlands in Scotland, and my own horses are retired, so I haven't got anything of my own to ride these days. But I still like to ride when I get the opportunity. But I went on a lovely holiday, and at one point we were traversing a very steep hill. So I was kind of side onto this hill, and I thought I could just feel the thoughts coming. Oh my God, like if my horse stumbled, he would go tumbling down that hill and I would go with him and he would land on top of me and he would squash me. And oh my God, this is going to be terrible. And then I could feel the anxiety rising. This all happened in a few moments.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, stop, Jane, wait a minute. And one of my favorite phrases, which I talk to riders about and all the time, and often people kind of repeat it back to me, is to remember at this very moment in time, my horse is going in the direction of my choice at the pace of my choice. So lo and behold, everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's a lovely way just to bring yourself back into the moment.
Yeah.
I, at that moment, thought, right, this horse is doing what I've asked him to do. He's sure-footedly traversing this slope on a track and everything's fine. And then immediately you feel the stress hormones just returning to their normal level. So all those kind of stress symptoms, which most riders are familiar with, all riders, I would suggest, are probably familiar with, those symptoms just lessen and you start to feel comfortable again on the horse, and then you just carry on with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the answer to your question is no, I'm fixed as such, but I've got a large toolbox of tips and tricks and ideas and
Yeah.
phrases and so on that I can use in the moment if I need them.
Yeah. And you recognize it like in the first second or two, what's going on.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if
So
it's
things don't
good.
escalate at all anymore.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a situation, I haven't been for a long time, if I'm in a situation where I feel a bit out of control, I still don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can then, if something happens, I'm trying to think when the last thing happened, riding a friend's horse a couple of years ago, and I won't go into the whole story, but I fell off. And in the past, I might have dwelt on that and worried about it and kind of ruminated about it. And then I just thought, well, I know why that happened. It wasn't any fault of my own. I wasn't hurt. So just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then next time I get on the horse, you're not thinking about that thing anymore. It's gone. It's finished. It's in the past. It doesn't have any power on me in the present. So
Yeah.
let's just move on.
I like that. I like the story about the horse on the slope, and also this story. You've mentioned the present and the now moment. Do you think that's part of your coaching philosophy, to bring people into the now and give them the tools so they can do that?
Yes, very much. And it applies in all other areas of life as well. We can waste so much energy focusing on stuff that's gone on in the past or trying to predict what could happen in the future, that we sometimes forget to enjoy the present.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as riders, like, the present is usually wonderful. It's just you and a horse doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, if you can stay in the present, you're not remembering the pheasant that popped out of the hedge 200 yards back,
Yeah.
thinking, oh my God, please don't let there be another one 200 yards ahead. Right, well, actually, we dealt with that. The horse spooked, but I handled it. I stayed on. We've taken a few breaths to calm us down. The horse has relaxed again, and let's continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely.
You're avoiding that escalation into panic.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to do, isn't it? We can't necessarily predict that we're going to have these wonderful brains that never ever get triggered again. But like you say, you can deal with it very, very swiftly. So
Yeah.
it doesn't become anything like a problem. Do you ever work with non-equestrians at all?
I did in the past for a long time, for until about 5 years ago. I worked with, and for many years, it was kind of roughly half non-equestrians and half equestrian work. And then I made the decision about 5 years ago to say, well, actually, I really love working with equestrians. So I'm just going to cut out all the non-equestrian stuff. So no more smoking cessation and all that.
You don't work with people in other sports?
I have done, and I probably would work with people in other sports. I've worked with quite a few golfers, and I've worked with some swimmers, a boxer,
Oh,
interestingly, and yeah, golfers and swimmers the other sports. I haven't had anybody recently contact me
Yeah.
to ask about another sport, but I would work with another sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Do you think it's an advantage that you're a rider, that you're a horsey person, that you're a horse owner, and so on, that because of that you can work better with horse people? Do you think that's a good benefit?
Yeah, I think so. It's a tricky one though, because, when I was going back to nursing days, I could nurse people successfully, hopefully, presumably, who had all sorts of illnesses and conditions that I didn't know about or had never experienced. So there is an element of that, if you don't have to have experienced everything that your clients are going through or experiencing, but it's really important to have the equestrian knowledge so that you've got the language, you have been on horseback, you know what it's like, and it's obviously and probably most people listening to this know horse riding is a unique pastime or sport because we've got the horse in the equation. So I think it is really helpful from my point of view, from my client's point of view. And over the years, I've had a number of clients who've come to me, said they'd been to another hypnotherapist who just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so they obviously appreciate that experience that I've got.
Yeah. I suppose if you're a non-equestrian, if you've got no horsey links whatsoever, your question would be, why bother riding? If you're scared, why own a horse? Why ride a horse? Just stay away from them.
Yeah.
There's no real concept of why you would want to do this. Why do you do it to yourself? So yeah, I
That's a
think
question a lot of people must ask themselves quite a lot. Equestrian sport, it's so often people have got a huge financial commitment, a huge emotional commitment because they love this animal. They've often got a huge social commitment because a lot of their friends are either on the yard or, they meet at shows and everything. Their social life is often wrapped up in horse riding. And that's why it's so important that it works well for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they devote so much time and energy and emotion and money to this pastime, so that people like you and me and others can really help them to make the most of that opportunity
Yeah.
without excessive worry.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember who it was now. It might have been Kelly Marks said something like that they're too expensive not to enjoy or something. I can't remember the exact quote. But it's so true, isn't it, that people don't enjoy themselves and spend all that time, energy, effort, money, everything else, all the emotion that gets poured into it.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And then, we do get people who are doing absolutely fine in one area of their life. They may be holding down a very demanding job or a very high powered job, or they've got a lot going on in their family situation. And it's really important that their horse riding can be their downtime, their relaxation time. And, it's often quite complicated to work out what's going on. But again, it's really helpful if we can support them to be able to enjoy that downtime and to be able to make the most of their riding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can come away from the yard feeling refreshed and happy rather than dreading the next time they've got to go. I'm sure you'll have had people who express, kind of breathing that sigh of relief once the ride's over for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's bad, isn't it? It's just like, kind of working themselves up to making themselves get on because
Yeah.
they're worried about something that could happen that they're not going to be able to handle.
Yeah.
And if we can help them let go of them and just say, well, let's just look forward to riding and enjoy it and have fun. And if we want to go out and compete, let's go out and compete. And if we don't want to go out and compete, let's have fun doing whatever we choose to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely. Lovely way of thinking about it. So thinking again about your celebratory year, your 20 years, where do you think mindset coaching for equestrians are going to go in the next 20 years?
Oh gosh, yes.
That's a nice question for
I
you.
know,
But
yeah.
I've not been asked that one.
The coaches, who are coming up through BHS and so on, doing much more mindset stuff. So it might be that there's less of a role for people like you and me. I don't know.
Mm.
I haven't really thought about that till this very minute. I suppose riders get a different relationship with their riding coach to they
Yeah.
get with you and me and others, obviously, who do this type of work. And they generally have a longer relationship with them. They might go weekly or monthly to their riding coach for years and years and years, but they rarely commit that amount of time and money to seeing somebody like me or you. So that if that riding coach can then coach them in the mindset side of it as well, then maybe they won't need to do the off-horse work. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, that was good. That was a curveball. I think I agree with what you're saying, and I think as well that mindset will become part of the course. A little bit like you have a saddle fitter or, a physio and all these extras that go with owning a horse. I think that people will start to see, I need to go and check in with my mindset. I think the taboo side of it, if there ever was one, has started to be lifted, and mental health issues are now spoken about so much more freely. So I think it won't be a problem for people to discuss these types of things if they want to discuss it, or certainly just contact somebody who can help them out. I think rather than trying the self-help route for an excessive amount of time and not getting anywhere and not feeling any better. I'm not saying that that's not a good route in the first instances, but I think people will start to seek out help a little bit more readily. And we've seen it on social media. People plaster all over social media that they've had a mindset session or they're looking forward to a mindset session. And it's not a thing now. It is like saying, I've got the equine dentist this afternoon or something like that. I think I think even more and more we'll get to a point where it is just people shrug their shoulders. Yep, I'm having a mindset session. So.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes, I think that's a good point. And I think you're probably right. And in the past a saddle fitter would just chuck any old saddle on your horse.
Yeah.
Or, a physio for a horse. Really? So yes, hopefully you're right. And I mean, we're just recording this just at the end of the Paris Olympics, and it's been fascinating listening to a lot of the interviews with the athletes there, just how important mindset is for them.
Yeah.
And it is becoming so much more mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. A lot of them have mentioned mindset and coaching in mindset. And I saw a high jumper doing a visualization. She was sort of lying down in a sleeping bag. And you could see, because she was moving sort of in a way that you went over a high jump, and you could see she was visualizing jumping this thing. So, once people are showing that at the Olympics, then everyone wants a piece of it. They're like, what is she doing? And why bother?
Yeah, absolutely. There's also one of a gymnast on the pommel horse. And there's at the top of it's a split screen. So on the top, he's doing the visualization. On the bottom is the actual performance. And
Yeah.
he's like twirling round and round, and you can see he's kind of moving his hands. And then at the end, he jumps off and puts his hands up in the air like he does. And then underneath, you can see the reality of his performance. So that's a brilliant one. Look out for that one.
Oh yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and visualization is one of my favorite things to teach people. And using visualization, yes, for learning tests or practice mentally rehearsing cross country course or a show jumping course or any riding skill, but also visualization for confidence boosting, for kind of recalling a time when you dug deep and you overcame a challenge, and that's such a great proof to you that you can do hard stuff.
Yeah.
Taking that belief then into the future imagined ride or situation and saying, well, I know I did it. I dug deep and I overcame a challenge in the past. So I'm going to remember those skills and those strengths and that everything that went along with that memory. And I'm going to bring that with me into the future. And that's one of my favorite ones to kind of work with clients.
That's special. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So talking about working with clients, I know you've got the word Scotland in your business name, but you aren't exclusive to Scottish people, are you?
No, obviously I was back in 2004 because people used to drive all the way to Dollar, where I'm based in central Scotland, to see me. But then, yeah, things have changed over the years. And I still do see people face to face. I offer that if they choose. But I see people on Zoom as well. And yes, I just keep the name Scotland in the name because I like it. That's where I'm based. But I have a kind of quite a big cohort of riders from Ireland and in various, people from different parts of England as well. And yeah, one or two kind of creeping in from other parts of the world as well. So yes, so I'm based in Scotland, but via the internet, I'm connected to wherever the person might be.
Yeah. Brilliant. So where can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you on the internet and on socials?
So yeah, the usual places. My website is horseridingwithconfidencescotland.co.uk. I'm on Instagram as at Confident Riding Scotland, and I'm on Facebook as Horse Riding with Confidence Scotland. And so, yes, I post regularly on those socials, and people can follow me there. They can message me or email me or phone me. My contact details are very visible. So if people want to get in touch to find out more or to ask any questions, then feel free to do so.
People should as well. Yeah, I think that they would really enjoy a session with you on Zoom or in person to get rid of all their mindset wobbles and niggles. And I think they'd really enjoy that. Thanks ever so much for chatting, Jane. It has
Thank
been
you,
fabulous
Tracy.
to hear from you.
Loved talking to you as always. Thank you.
Thank you.